when forced into a corner by the school bully. I sent a message to my Wild King brother whom I met online. As a result, the bully's phone rang. Damn it. Is my little sweetheart being blocked by someone? Which bastard doesn't want to live? Benjamin's face changed, and he immediately dialed a voice call back. Looking at the call page flickering on the screen, my heart was pounding, and I couldn't help but feel a little lucky that my phone was on silent at the moment. But my gentle and understanding Wild King brother is Benjamin, the school bully? At this moment, I don't have any excitement about meeting my online date in person. Only full-fledged fear. A school bully like Benjamin is not someone I can afford to provoke. Just like now. I was just going home as usual, and suddenly he came over with his gang, blocking me without hesitation, and not allowing me to take this road, saying it was his territory. I can't afford to get involved with this kind of bully. Woo woo woo. I turned off my phone screen and didn't dare to move a muscle, for fear that Benjamin would notice something wrong. When Benjamin saw that no one answered, he got impatient at once and swore continuously. Damn it. Who dares to touch my little sweetheart? This string of swear words scared me silly, and I pursed my lips and wanted to cry. Woo woo. My Wild King brother who used to speak so gently was actually fake. He was actually Benjamin, the king of hell. The little brother behind him comforted him. Boss, don't worry. I'll call the brothers right away to see if they know where someone is being blocked. Benjamin suddenly stared at me, which made my scalp tingle, and I shrank back. You're lucky today. Don't take this road again in the future. Do you hear me? I nodded vigorously, not daring to say a word. Benjamin turned around and sent a voice message on his phone. Darling, don't be afraid. I'll be there right away. The voice was still the one that once made my ears pregnant. Only, now my ears say they don't dare to get pregnant anymore. It was not until Benjamin and the others were out of sight that I ran home in a hurry, my heart pounding non-stop. I opened my phone. There were dozens of messages from the Wild King. 7 or 8 missed calls. And the rest were all voice messages. I pressed the first one, and it was the sentence, darling, don't be afraid. I'll be there right away, that I had just heard. The second one, darling, answer the phone quickly, or tell me where you are. I'll go and kill that brat. The third one, darling, where are you? How are you? Reply to me. The tone became visibly more urgent. The fourth one, which bastard dares to touch my woman? See if I don't kill him. The fifth one. The voice became gentle again. Darling, don't be afraid. I was too worried. Did I scare you? I scrolled up, and it was the chat record between me and the Wild King last night. Jiu Nyang Fiona, brother. Are you free? I want to straddle you during the New Year's Eve next year. Wu Rao Kong Shan, you don't need to wait until next year. It can be during the Dragon Boat Festival. I'm already lying down. How sweet it was when I sent it at that time. And now it looks so embarrassing. I couldn't help but let out a series of groundhog screams. If time and space could cycle, I would definitely control myself and not be bewitched by the Wild King's voice. Fortunately, it's the Dragon Boat Festival holiday today, and I can go back to school in 2 days. I don't need to worry about meeting Benjamin, but this online relationship can't continue anymore. I must find a reason to break up with him. My mind was full of how to break up, and it took me a while to hear the phone ringing. I thought it was Benjamin's call, but then I realized that he didn't have my number. We had only been in an online relationship for a month. I took a look, and it was my roommate, Fiona. Crazy. Let me tell you, Benjamin has gone crazy. Hearing this name, my heart skipped a beat, and I asked guiltily, what happened? Benjamin doesn't know which nerve is wrong. He's asking in all social groups who went to block someone today, and a lot of people have been called and asked. I just heard that it seems his girlfriend was blocked. Oh my God. Which poor guy is it? Who dares to be the girlfriend of the king of hell? The poor guy is right here. I have nothing to say. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll hang up first. Yes. 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 It's the Dragon Boat Festival. You are from this city. And I'm not going home either. Let's go out and play tomorrow. Okay. After hanging up the phone, I was extremely remorseful again. But it's not a solution to let Benjamin go on like this. If I don't give him a definite answer, I'm afraid he will still be asking people one by one tomorrow. My hands were shaking as I opened the chat box. To Jiu Nying Fiona, I'm sorry. I accidentally touched the distress message just now. I'm fine. A voice message popped up directly from the other side, which scared me so much that I quickly hung up. Wu Rao Kong Shan, why don't you answer the phone? I'm worried about you. Jiu Nying Fiona, my mom is here. It's not very convenient. Wu Rao Kong Shan, oh. Okay. It's good that you're fine. You scared me to death. Wu Rao Kong Shan, I didn't expect that I was your first distress call contact. I'm very happy. To avoid this kind of thing from really happening in the future, let's exchange phone numbers. Help. 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 I don't mean this. Really not. At this moment, the phone was extremely hot in my hand, and I didn't know how to reply. So I simply didn't reply. Yes. The first step in breaking up is to ignore him. Having made up my mind, I didn't look at my phone again. When I came out after washing up, my parents also came back and dragged me to make songs together. By the time we finished, it was already 10 o'clock at night. It's time to go to bed. I can't fall asleep even though I'm lying in bed. My mind is full of the way Benjamin blocked my way, and the words he said when we were in an online relationship. Good grief. The so-called school bully actually pretended to be gentle in the online relationship. Speaking of the online relationship, we met in the King's Canyon. I'm the kind of person who is not good at the game but loves to play. I was scolded until I cried, but still couldn't put down my mobile phone. I was crying while playing, and accidentally clicked on the voice. In that round, I happened to be matched with Benjamin. His ID is fog surrounding the empty mountain. Listen, how stylish it is. Who could have thought that he was a school bully? He asked me why I was crying. His voice was so pleasant that I immediately forgot to cry. And then sobbingly told him how I was scolded. He comforted me extremely gently and then won the game with an excellent record of 21-0-13. Then we played in duo queue for the whole night, and naturally added each other as friends when the game ended. As time went by, we started an online relationship, constantly calling each other brother and darling, being all lovey-dovey. Thinking of those lovey-dovey moments, I got goosebumps all over my body. I rubbed my arms and closed my eyes, forcing myself not to think about it. The next day when I woke up, I made an appointment with Amy to meet at the shopping center. When I was about to go out, my mother told me, "Come back early. Mom has recently made a new best friend, and I've invited her family over for dinner today." Got it. Waving my hand, I went out. When I arrived at the shopping center, Unmi had already been there. As soon as she saw me, she immediately ran over mysteriously and dragged me to the second floor. "What are you doing?" "Take you to see some handsome guys." In the men's clothing area on the second floor, there were quite a lot of people. Ami dragged me to shuttle through the crowd. "I saw it just now. Benjamin is buying clothes here. Although his character is not so good, his face is really good looking." My heart skipped a beat. It was too late to refuse. Not far in front of me, Benjamin looked lifeless, mechanically taking off his clothes and putting them on. Although it was a bit noisy around, I still heard his voice. "My dear Ms. Chen, this is the 8th piece already." The woman beside him should be his mother. I didn't hear what his mother said, but she raised her hand to signal him to look up and straighten his collar for him. At this very moment, our eyes met unexpectedly. Benjamin was stunned for a moment. I quickly dragged Amy and ran away. Really? The more you don't want to see someone, the more likely you are to meet them. What a misfortune. Fiona. What's wrong with you? I shook my head. Nothing. Let's go shopping. I shopped with Amy all afternoon. It was not until my mother called to urge me that I said goodbye to her and went home. The image of Benjamin being dragged by his mother to buy clothes popped up in my mind at an inopportune time. I can't tell. The school bully is quite obedient to his mother. When I got home, I saw a car parked in the yard. Presumably, my mother's new best friend had arrived. When passing by the car, I heard a gentle and sad voice from the driver's seat. Darling, you haven't paid attention to me for a whole night and an afternoon. Was my request too abrupt yesterday and made you angry? Sorry. Don't be angry. Okay? My mobile phone rang twice inappropriately. In an instant, I was struck by lightning. Benjamin. Why is he here? My mother's new best friend. Couldn't she be his mother? Is it too late for me to run now? It's over. It's too late. Benjamin opened the car door and got out. When he saw me, he was a little surprised. Well, it's you. What? Do you like eavesdropping very much? 3 No. I was just passing by. I hurriedly walked past Benjamin towards the house. My heart was pounding with fright. But after just taking 2 steps, fate suddenly grabbed the back of my neck. I turned around and glared angrily at Benjamin, who was grabbing my collar. I made another mental note of his rudeness. Blocking me for no reason. Using foul language. And now grabbing my clothes. Doesn't he know that it's very impolite to grab a girl's clothes like this? Obviously. Benjamin doesn't know. He carried me outside like a little chicken and blocked me in the corner again. He blocked me again. Is there no law? Benjamin folded his arms and asked in a ruffian manner. You're home? I pursed my lips and really wanted to retort. If it's not my home, could it be yours? But I'm a coward. The scene where he led people to block me is still vivid in my memory. The bulging muscles on his arms and his gouty light-haired little brothers behind him. So fierce. I nodded without backbone and didn't dare to make a sound. What's your name? Fiona. Benjamin curled his lips into a smile and suddenly moved closer. I felt that my breathing became difficult all of a sudden. Later, my mother and your mother will have dinner. You should know what to say, and what not to say. Right? His eyes were oppressive. I nodded vigorously without any hesitation. But he's afraid that his mother will know? Great. I'm not afraid. Benjamin suddenly coughed. His expression was awkward for a moment. And soon he regained his fierce look. Just now. Did you hear anything? I shook my head and tried to look innocent. How dare I hear anything with him like this? Benjamin's expression relaxed. He raised an eyebrow and stepped aside a little. Go in. I ran into the house in a flash and saw Benjamin's mother chatting animatedly with my mother. My mother teased me. Oh. Were you chased by a ghost? You ran so fast. Come here. Let me introduce you. This is Mom's best friend. Just call her Aunt Chen. Later, Aunt Chen's son will also come. I heard that he is very handsome. When Benjamin was mentioned, my mother grinned from ear to ear. She is a sucker for good looks. I pursed my lips and rushed over to hold Aunt Chen's hand. And then started wailing. Aunt Chen. Save me. Benjamin hit me. He blocked my way with some guys yesterday. Woo woo woo. Fiona. Suddenly, Benjamin roared from the doorway. I turned around and saw him approaching menacingly. My heart skipped a beat and I held on to Aunt Chen tightly. Auntie? Look. He was like this yesterday. Look at how big and strong he is. He even blocked my way with some guys when I'm just a girl. I'm really weak. Pitiful. And helpless. I was so scared. Fiona. Shut up. Ah. He's so fierce. Auntie. I'm scared. For a while. My wailing and Benjamin's roaring filled the whole living room. I felt that his eyes could cut me into pieces. Benjamin. Aunt Chen shouted angrily. Her face had already darkened, completely losing the joy she had just had. I was so frightened that I shut my mouth. Benjamin also pursed his lips and stopped, looking at Aunt Chen solemnly. Mom, I didn't mean to block her way. Yesterday I... Shut up. Fiona. You tell me. I sobbed as I told what had happened yesterday. At the end, I added, I just ran into him when I came back. He threatened me and told me not to tell you. Auntie, I'm scared. I'm afraid he'll retaliate against me later. Can we exchange phone numbers? Benjamin's gnashing voice came faintly from the side. Fiona, you're really something. I trembled with fear. Aunt Chen immediately shielded me behind her. What? Do you think I'm not here? Acting so arrogantly. Benjamin's face became helpless. Mom, I blocked her way because that road has been unsafe recently. You've heard about that rapist on the run, right? My little brother saw someone acting suspiciously on that road recently. So Aunt Chen snorted coldly. Then couldn't you have told the girl nicely? Did you have to block a girl's way with some guys? Benjamin scratched his head and was at a loss for words for a moment. I poked my head out and echoed. Yes. Couldn't you have told me nicely? Apologized to Fiona. Benjamin's face stiffened. He pouted and reluctantly said to me, I'm sorry. My mother came out to smooth things over and immediately took on the air of a hostess. Okay. Just don't do it again. Everyone. Sit down. Woo. Mom, I love you. You haven't become so obsessed with good looks that you lose your mind. We sat down to have dinner. The meal was full of surprises but ended without major incident. At least for me and Benjamin. My mother and Aunt Chen had a great chat. I also successfully got Aunt Chen's phone number, which was like having an extra layer of protection. When we saw Aunt Chen and them off at the door, Benjamin deliberately lagged behind and walked side by side with me. I immediately felt all the hairs on my body stand on end. Benjamin's voice drifted faintly into my ears. Little girl, you're quite good at going back on your word. Judging from his tone, he seemed to be planning to settle scores later. I opened my mouth to call Aunt Chen, but Benjamin was one step faster and pulled her into the car first. For I spent a nervous night. The next morning, I was woken up by a message notification. I opened my phone and saw that they were all messages from my special concern. A gentle and slow voice drifted into my ears. Misty Mountains, darling. Why are you ignoring me? I'm so sad. Misty Mountains, darling. Are you very busy at home? It's okay. You can reply to me when you are free. A few minutes later, 2 photos were sent from the other side. I clicked on them to enlarge and was stunned all of a sudden. The photos were taken in front of a mirror, showing the back. The face was blocked by the phone, but it was not hard to recognize that it was Benjamin. In the photos, his back was covered with purple and blue bruises overlapping each other. In some places, blood oozed out, leaving a glaring red mark on his back. It was shocking. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. I swiped to the second photo, which was a picture of him having medicine applied, with a thick layer of white powder on it. Benjamin's voice rang out again. Misty Mountains, darling. I saved a girl yesterday, but she complained to my mother, which made my father beat me up. It hurts so much. Misty Mountains, but don't misunderstand. I have nothing to do with her. I saved her just because I'm a man of justice. She could complain to my mother because her mother happened to be my mother's newly met best friend. I'm not familiar with her at all. I still love you the most. Listening to Benjamin's voice, I suddenly felt a bit guilty. I scrolled down. After another 10 or so minutes, he sent 2 short voice messages. Misty Mountains, darling. Why don't you feel sorry for me? The voice was low, with a bit of a nasal tone. Misty Mountains, darling. Do you no longer like me? At the end, his voice trembled a little, as if he was about to cry. Suddenly, I felt very sad. After 2 months of knowing each other and 1 month of online dating, it would be a lie to say that I had no feelings. After hesitating for a long time, the words in the dialog box changed from comfort to breakup. Deleted and typed again. Typed and then deleted again. I was very self-aware and knew that Benjamin and I were not suitable for each other. We were not on the same path at all. He had a reputation for being overbearing, fierce, arrogant and proud. And I was just an ordinary college student, with a weak personality and very well behaved. In every aspect, we were not suitable. And I didn't deserve him. Finally, I still typed a line of words. Fiona who made fermented glutinous rice. I don't like it anymore. Let's break up. When I clicked send, it seemed to have drained all my strength. I felt very sad and sorrowful, but not to the point of having a good cry. I quietly looked out of the window, not wanting to move at all. With a ding-dong, Benjamin replied to me. Just 3 words. Misty mountains. Why? I stared at these 3 words for a long time, and finally deleted and blocked him. I let out a heavy breath and reluctantly got up to tidy myself up. I planned to go out for a stroll as I was feeling too stuffy. I told my mother and then took the bus out by myself, aimlessly. This stroll lasted until the evening, and I felt much better. My mother asked me when I would be back and asked me to bring her some barbecue and beer. Looking around, there was no barbecue stall, so I could only keep walking. Suddenly, I heard a fight. It was coming from the barbecue stall across the street from me. A man in a leather jacket pinned another fat man to the ground, and his fists kept landing on his face, and blood was seen at once. This scene scared me silly. Subconsciously, I wanted to run, but the man who was hitting suddenly spoke, and his voice was extremely familiar to me. How dare you run wild on my territory? Are you tired of living? Benjamin. It was actually him. Immediately, 2 younger brothers ran up behind him and pulled him up. Boss. Forget it. Forget it. We're okay. Benjamin was pulled up. He raised his hand to wipe the blood splashed on his face. When he looked up, his eyes met mine. 5 suddenly. It seemed that everything around had stopped. I could hear nothing. All I could see were Benjamin's scarlet and fierce eyes, as if he would rush over and tear me apart the next second. However, he just looked at me once and then casually moved his eyes away. He let his younger brothers support him to sit down, his movements a little stiff. The fat man who had been punched on the ground also staggered to his feet, pointing at Benjamin and snarling, You wait for me. After that, he covered his head and ran away. Benjamin's eyes were contemptuous. Obviously, he didn't take him seriously. Boss, you're already injured. Why are you still fighting so hard for us? It was just a quarrel. We can bear it. We've heard this kind of talk a lot before. Shut up. Bring the wine. His mood was obviously bad. I probably guessed what it was for, but I didn't dare to think deeply. Boss, you're still injured. Don't. Benjamin gave a sideways glance, and the younger brother who was speaking shut his mouth resentfully and silently handed over the wine. He took the wine bottle and drank it in big gulps, as if he couldn't wait to drink himself to death. The younger brother beside him wanted to persuade him but didn't dare to. I felt a little pain in my heart. I turned around and left in a hurry. But then I heard a sound of glass breaking behind me. Crackling. It was extremely ear-piercing. Damn it. It's the first time I've seriously been in a relationship. And I got dumped. Benjamin's angry voice floated into my ears, making me feel uncomfortable all over. I directly trotted away. After running for a while, when I couldn't hear Benjamin's voice anymore, I slowly stopped. My nose was a little sour. I rubbed my nose, trying to rub away the soreness. I looked up at the surroundings, wanting to buy the barbecue quickly and go home. Fortunately, the area across the street was basically all barbecue stalls. I chose the last one. After choosing what my mother liked, I sat aside and waited. I opened my mobile phone. The top pinned on QQ was still the name, Misty Mountains. And the chat record stopped at the 2 words, breakup. Inappropriately. The 2 photos that Benjamin sent me popped into my mind. His back was purple and blue. His back was like that. And he was still drinking. Wouldn't it be more serious? I was hesitating whether to tell Aunt Chen and let her call Benjamin to go home. But when I thought that Benjamin's back was beaten by his father, I guessed that his father would be even more angry if he knew he was drinking. For a while, I was in a dilemma. Stop. Don't run. Stinky boy. You stop for me. Suddenly, there was a commotion behind me. I turned around and saw a group of people running towards this side. In front were Benjamin and his 2 men. It was the fat man just now. He had called people back. My heart tightened. And subconsciously, I wanted to call the police. But then I saw Benjamin's younger brother leading the fat man and his people in another direction. And Benjamin ran straight towards me. This movement made the barbecue stalls in this row instantly chaotic. Many people having late-night snacks fled one after another, which also made it more convenient for Benjamin to escape. He was agile and soon got rid of the pursuers. The position where I was sitting blocked Benjamin. I wanted to get up to get out of the way. But at this time, the barbecue stall owner ran over to pull me. And we bumped into each other. My body uncontrollably fell backwards. There was a table behind me. Just as I was about to fall on it, a strong hand grabbed my wrist. And then Benjamin and I fell on the table with a bang. And the table collapsed immediately. I don't know if it was because I was too heavy, and he couldn't hold me. Or if he was injured and had no strength. Benjamin was on top of me. I just felt that the air in my lungs was suddenly squeezed out. I reached out and pushed him. Heavy. Get up. Benjamin propped himself up on his elbows a little and stared at me with deep eyes. No, his line of sight was on the left side of my head. I turned my head to look. And just saw my phone screen turned off. At this moment, I felt like my heart had stopped beating. The page I had just opened was the chat record with him. Had Benjamin seen anything? At this moment, I didn't dare to look at Benjamin. And my body trembled slightly. If he finds out that I have deceived him, he will surely want to tear me to pieces. Ouch. Get up quickly. Don't crush the little girl. The boss pulled Benjamin up. And I also quickly got up. I could feel his eyes fixed on me all the time. Picking up my mobile phone. I didn't dare to delay for a moment and turned around to leave. The boss hurriedly stopped me. Little girl. Your barbecue isn't ready yet. I don't want it anymore. I just want to stay far away from Benjamin right now. I ran a long way in a flash. I didn't care about the barbecue and beer my mother wanted either. And hurriedly took a taxi home. All the way, my heart was in my throat. Benjamin didn't see it. Right? My mobile phone screen has already gone dark. But his look seemed to suggest that he had seen it. What should I do? When I got home, I paid in cash and got out of the car absent-mindedly. Fiona. A familiar voice rang out. And my whole body froze. Stiffly turning my head, I saw Benjamin walking towards me with a bag in his hand. One hand in his pocket. Looking relaxed. At this moment, I just felt my scalp tingle, and turned around to run. The footsteps behind me also quickly sped up. And fate once again grabbed me by the back of my neck. Benjamin's cool voice sounded above my head. Why are you running? I'm not going to eat you. Here. This is from the boss. I've paid for you. Shouldn't you transfer the money to me? He handed the barbecue in front of me from behind. In this position now, I was almost leaning in his arms. Besides the smell of alcohol, there was also a smell of blood, which was very unpleasant. I swallowed saliva and forced a fake smile. Thank you. Shaking my hand, I took the barbecue, shrank my shoulders and took 2 steps forward. Benjamin then let go of me and walked around to stand in front of me, blocking my way home. Woo woo. Mom. Help. I lowered my head, looking at the tip of Benjamin's shoes. and tentatively moved one step to the left. Then he also moved one step. I moved to the right. And he also moved to the right. Immediately after, a hand with some blood on it stretched out in front of me, holding a mobile phone with the QR code for adding friends on it. Why don't you add me as a friend and give me the money? My hanging heart dropped a little. I took out my mobile phone and unlocked it. However, at the moment when the screen was unlocked, it was still the chat record between Benjamin and me. I hurriedly clicked back, because my hand was shaking and I used too much force. The mobile phone almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, at the critical moment, the mobile phone was sensitive and didn't get stuck. Otherwise, I would really lose my cover right in front of Benjamin. Then I might die a very miserable death. Quietly looking up at him, he had a ruffian smile on his face and there was nothing unusual. He should not have noticed. I just went back very quickly. I opened WeChat and added him as a friend. How much? 120. I opened the transfer and sent the money over. Done. He snorted softly and stepped aside. I hurriedly lifted my feet to go home. Benjamin behind me was like a vengeful ghost. His voice suddenly rang out. Fiona. The rice wine girl? My hand that was about to open the door paused, and all the hairs on my body stood on end. My back felt cold, and I had the illusion of being about to be executed by slow slicing. Fiona. The rice wine girl. Benjamin called out again, and my heart sank suddenly. It's over. I've been exposed. I'm doomed. Trembling, I turned around and saw Benjamin with his hands in his pockets, leaning against the wall, with a smile on his lips and looking at me maliciously. 7. The WeChat name is quite nice. It's the same as someone I know. What a coincidence. My heart skipped a violent beat, and was still hanging high, not daring to relax. Judging from what he said, he should not have recognized me. I swear that I will never use the same name on QQ and WeChat in the future. I'll change it right away when I get back. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll go home first. Benjamin smiled, a smile that made my whole body hairy. Then he waved his hand. Go ahead. As if being pardoned. I quickly opened the door and ran away, like I was going to the toilet. Leaning against the door, I gasped for breath, as if I had just come back from the battlefield. My heart pounding. After giving the barbecue to my mother, I hurriedly went back to my room to change my name, and then prepared to wash up and go to sleep. When I went to draw the curtain, my hand paused. By the roadside, under the warm yellow streetlight, Benjamin was leaning against the lamppost, his head down, with a cigarette in his mouth. The scarlet light of the cigarette but flickered on and off, and the smoke curled up, making it hard for me to see his face. Somehow, I felt that he was shrouded in a loquial loneliness at this moment. Very solitary. After finishing a cigarette, he threw the cigarette but on the ground, stepped on it to put it out, and then put his hands in his pockets, and looked up. Almost at the same time, I quickly drew the curtain, blocking his sight. At this moment, I began to be uncertain in my heart. Did Benjamin recognize me or not? It seemed that he had, and it also seemed that he hadn't. Lying on the bed, thinking about it, I fell asleep directly. The next day, I was woken up by my mother's voice like she was urging me to die. Mom, what are you doing? It's not easy to have a holiday. Don't let me have a good sleep. What sleep? Hurry up and get ready. Today, Aunt Chen has invited us to go over and play. Aunt Chen. Benjamin. I immediately became sober, and shook my head vigorously. I'm not going. I want to rest. I want to study. You must go. Finally, I couldn't outwit my mother and was dragged along to go. Benjamin's family lies in a large villa. It is said that his father is a businessman and is very strict. He hopes that Benjamin can inherit his father's business. But unexpectedly he doesn't have the slightest intention, and has directly become a school bully that everyone is afraid of. After entering Aunt Chen greeted us very enthusiastically and asked us to sit down. I was on pins and needles, fearing that Benjamin would pop out from somewhere the next second. Hey! Why hasn't that naughty boy come down yet? Fiona. Auntie wants to talk more with your mother. Can you go upstairs and see for Auntie? Of course you can. Hurry up. Just as I was about to refuse, my mother quickly pushed me up. Being overly eager. Xiao Bi's room is the second one on the second floor. At this point, I couldn't very well go against the elder's wishes, so I could only bite the bullet and go upstairs. Slowly and reluctantly. No matter how unwilling I was, I still arrived at the door of the room. Taking a deep breath and gathering my courage, I raised my hand to knock on the door. But who would have thought that with just one knock, the door opened a crack. It wasn't locked. Benjamin's voice came from inside the room. I'll be down right away. Stop hurrying me. At this time, his voice was a bit hoarse, as if he was very uncomfortable. My mind told me that I should turn around and go downstairs at this time and not face Benjamin directly. But my body didn't listen to me, and a touch of worry welled up in my heart. In these 2 minutes of hesitation, Benjamin came over to close the door and saw me. Both of us were startled. I was startled because he suddenly appeared, half naked, and his muscles were bulging without deliberately flexing. Subconsciously, I raised my hand to cover my eyes. But when my hand was halfway up, it was suddenly grabbed. And then I was dragged in forcefully. The door slammed shut behind me. What are you doing? Help me. Benjamin turned around. After seeing what his back looked like, I covered my mouth in disbelief. And my heart ached. What I saw in person was far more shocking than what I saw in the photo. Soon, he came back with a bottle of medicine and handed it to me. There are some places I can't reach. Help me. I hesitated and didn't dare to take it. Unexpectedly, he directly stuffed the medicine into my hand and then dragged me to the table. Sat down himself, with his back to me. Be quick. We still have to go downstairs later. Okay. All right. My hands were a little shaky. I opened the medicine bottle, took a cotton swab on the table, dipped it in the powder and smeared it on. Benjamin's body suddenly trembled violently. Hiss. Be gentle. It hurts. His voice was low and hoarse, with an unbearable pain. I couldn't help but bend down and make my movements as gentle as possible. But the powder was not like ointment, and Benjamin was sitting. So before the powder could stick to the wound, it just fell straight down. Seeing this, I moved closer and blew the nearly falling powder over with my mouth. Benjamin grunted again. I saw the muscles in his arm bulge suddenly, and he clenched his fist. My scalp tingled. I was afraid that he couldn't bear the pain and would turn around and punch me. Well, relax a bit. I'll try to be as quick as possible. He answered in a low voice. And then added, just talk. Don't cry. I wasn't crying. I was just scared. And my voice was a bit shaky. Although I wanted to be quicker, I really couldn't. There were large areas of wounds on his back. And the cotton swab was small. My hands were not disinfected, so I couldn't touch the wounds directly. And I didn't dare to ask Benjamin to lie on the bed, so that it would be easier to apply the medicine. It was not until my cheeks were sore from blowing that I managed to apply a layer of powder on his back. Phew. I let out a sigh of relief. Stop blowing. It itches. His voice was extremely hoarse. I glared at the back of Benjamin's head. It was okay that he didn't say thank you. But he had so many problems. Just as I put down the powder, he raised his hand and handed me a roll of bandage. Help me wrap it up, so that the clothes won't rub off the medicine later. Meeting Benjamin's dark eyes, my retort died in my throat. I snatched the bandage, handed him the end. Hold it yourself. Benjamin took the end, his tone full of amusement. You have a big temper. Glancing at him, I unrolled the bandage and wrapped it around his waist for half a circle. And then I was suddenly at a loss. Benjamin was sitting, And there was a table in front of him. I couldn't go around in front of him. And he was just sitting there like a lord, with no intention of giving a hand. I could only put my arm around his waist to help him wrap the bandage. But this action was too ambiguous. Just as I was thinking about what to do, Benjamin's urging voice came from my ear. Be quick. My shoulder hurts. It's not easy to wrap. I looked up and saw that the wound on his scapula was indeed quite serious. I pursed my lips and resignedly reached out to put my arm around his waist and passed the bandage from my left hand to my right hand. The pads of my fingers accidentally touched Benjamin's abdominal muscles. I quickly withdrew my hand and almost touched his wound. His teasing voice rang in front of me, taking advantage of me. With one sentence. My face instantly flushed. Fortunately, he was facing away from me and couldn't see it. Shut up. I really owe you. I didn't dare to delay. So I just wrapped it roughly, tied a knot casually, and ended this agonizing moment. Benjamin turned around and suddenly burst out laughing. I'm the one in pain. Why are you the one with a flushed face and sweating all over? He reached out, as if to wipe my sweat. I glared at him and slapped his hand away, but unexpectedly found that his hand was extremely hot, and suddenly forgot my anger. Do you have a fever? Just outside the door. I heard that his voice seemed very uncomfortable. Benjamin grunted sullenly, got up and walked to the bedside to pick up his shirt and put it on. While buttoning it, he said, I overdid it with drinking yesterday and have a bit of a fever. While speaking, he looked at me and walked towards me. Don't tell my mother. This is a secret between the two of us. There were star-like glints in his pitch-black eyes. Extremely alluring. But my attention was suddenly drawn to his buttoning hands. Aren't you supposed to have a sore shoulder and be unable to move? You seem quite nimble to me right now. Benjamin. You lied to me. I turned around and wanted to leave. But suddenly he grabbed my arm. It's my fault. It's my fault. I didn't mean to lie to you. Don't be angry. Okay? His voice softened, with a touch of coquetry, which suddenly reminded me of the time when we were in an online relationship. I was startled. At first, Benjamin wasn't like this with me. Cold and fierce. But he had been a bit strange since last night. Had he already known? Benjamin. Are you? Just as I decided to ask, a knock on the door interrupted me. Aunt Chen's voice came from outside the door. Shall be I. Fiona. Come down for dinner. 9 at the dinner table. I secretly glanced at Benjamin many times, suspecting that he already knew who I was. But the latter just ate quietly, looking at his phone from time to time and sending messages or something. After dinner, my mother and Aunt Chen were going out shopping, but they didn't plan to take me with them. So Aunt Chen asked Benjamin to take me out for a stroll. Benjamin immediately agreed and dragged me away, not giving me any chance to refuse. Arriving at a park, Benjamin received a call. He hung up after less than 2 minutes, then turned to look at me. Let's find a place to sit for a while. I nodded. We sat on a bench, with enough space for 2 more people between us. Neither of us spoke, and we were each playing with our phones. I was really on pins and needles. At this time, my phone rang. It was a message from the King of Glory group. There was a clan battle today, and 3 more people were needed. The group leader was shouting inside, Hurry up! Hurry up! Win and get skins. I immediately replied, Coming. On the one hand, I wanted to ease the awkwardness with Benjamin, and on the other hand, I was also eager for the skins. After logging in, the group leader pulled me in. There was only one last spot left. Before I could take a closer look at who was there, the game had already started. When I saw the bright pink heart on the loading page, I was a bit dumbfounded. I suddenly remembered that my couple relationship with Benjamin in the game hadn't been unbound yet. Looking at the opposite side, sure enough, the ID mistrapped empty mountain was on the opposite side. Damn it! Benjamin was not only beside me in person but also on the opposite side in the game. At this moment, I really wanted to quit the game. But the sportsmanship told me, no. Welcome to King of Glory. The enemy will arrive at the battlefield in 5 seconds. I secretly glanced at Benjamin out of the corner of my eye. His phone was also held horizontally. But there was no sound. His pitch-black eyes were slightly narrowed, staring at the screen, with a malicious smile on the corner of his mouth. This smile made my scalp tingle. Stiffly, I controlled little Kiao to come to the middle lane. Just as she poked her head out, a Hans and suddenly jumped out of the grass, scaring me. The ID mistrapped empty mountain was so conspicuous. I almost immediately flashed and retreated behind the tower, waiting for the minion wave to enter the tower. Then, Benjamin seemed to have taken over the middle lane minion waves. He came over every wave, and every time he beat me to low health. But didn't kill me. He just stood there and watched me run away. I didn't understand. I really didn't understand. In this way, Benjamin targeted me throughout the whole game. No matter where I walked, he could always jump out suddenly and give me a couple of hits. And when I was low on health, he would stop and watch me run away. I had no gaming experience at all. I wanted to type and ask him what he meant. But when I remembered that I had proposed the breakup, I chickened out. Finally, after 15 agonizing minutes, our side pushed the enemy's crystal. It seemed that I was the only one having a hard time. I immediately exited the game page and saw that Benjamin had sent me a message. Mistrapped empty mountain, turn your head and look at me. My heart skipped a beat, and there was only one thought in my mind. It's over. He had indeed recognized me. My first reaction was to run away. But the next second, Benjamin had already leaned over and grabbed my arm. Fiona, were you planning to keep pretending if I didn't say it explicitly? Tense since I had been recognized, I stopped pretending to. I turned my head and glared at him angrily. What do you mean? Suddenly jumping out. Beating me to low health but not killing me. Making me have no gaming experience at all. A flash of surprise passed through Benjamin's eyes, and he gritted his teeth and said, "Is this what you care about?" He suddenly moved closer to me, and I was forced to lean back. I beat you to low health because someone broke up with me without a word, not even giving me a chance to explain. I'm very angry. I let you run away because I can't bear to see you die. Here. He pointed to his heart. I'm reluctant. When he said the word, reluctant, it was full of deep affection, and his eyes were extremely serious. My heart couldn't help but stop for a moment, and then beat wildly. Fiona, you knew who I was on the day I blocked you, right? I nodded. Benjamin's tone softened all of a sudden. I'm sorry. I had a bad attitude that day. I didn't know you were my online dating partner either. I didn't mean to scare you. Later, when I went to your house, I was afraid that you would complain to my mother and also afraid that you would see me sending voice messages. So I threatened you. I'm an asshole. Hit me. He grabbed my hand and hit himself with it. I quickly broke away from him and withdrew my hand. The anger in my heart, just now, had disappeared, and I began to face up to the relationship between us. Benjamin, when I said I wanted to break up, it wasn't on a whim, nor was it because I was angry. It was a decision I made after careful consideration. Why? Fiona, if there's something I did wrong, I can change. Just tell me, and I'll change it all. I sighed and shook my head. We are from two different worlds. If I had known you were Benjamin at the beginning, we would never have had an online relationship. He lowered his eyelids, and the hand that was holding mine also dropped down. His voice had a strong nasal tone. Is it because I'm a hooligan, fighting and doing all kinds of bad things, so you despise me and are afraid of me? Yes. I didn't refute. Indeed, this was part of the reason. But there was another part. I wanted to be in a relationship with the intention of getting married. I knew my place. Benjamin was proud and carefree. He couldn't change anything for me. I didn't have that much charm. So I knew to cut my losses in time. A person like him might be very suitable for dating, but not necessarily for getting married. Just like before. His mother asked me to go upstairs to call him, and he deliberately tricked me into applying medicine for him. During the meal, he kept sending messages, then answering the phone, and then in the team competition, he was on the opposite side of me. Step by step, he pushed me in front of him, and then made me admit that I was the person he had an online relationship with. Look, he calculated every step, leaving me no way to retreat. Actually, it didn't have to be like this. As early as when he found out who I was, he could have just asked me directly. Benjamin looked up at me, and something in his eyes was breaking bit by bit. His eyelashes trembled slightly, and he hesitated to speak. At this moment, I felt a sense of suffocation spreading from the bottom of my heart to all my limbs. I stood up. Benjamin suddenly reached out his hand but stopped in midair, looking as if he wanted to pull me but didn't dare. He looked up at me, the corners of his eyes red. Shall say, the one Fiona, contained endless grievances and sadness. Somehow, I also felt a little sad. I sniffed and found my voice again. We are not suitable. Let's just forget it. 11 When I got home, I felt dizzy and really wanted to fall on the bed and have a sleep. But as soon as I closed my eyes, all I could see were Benjamin's broken eyes and his cautious look. It seemed that he really liked me a lot. But how long could this kind of liking last? At the beginning, he had said that he liked my voice very much because it was very sweet. He just liked the sweet voice, not me as a person, because he hadn't even seen my photo. I was dull and ordinary. After getting in touch, he would surely get tired of me soon. So it was better to break up as soon as possible. It was good for both of us. My temples throbbed painfully. I lay down and forced myself to have a sleep. Everything would be fine when I woke up. After the Dragon Boat Festival holiday, I went back to school. Everything was as usual, as if the entanglement with Benjamin in those days was just an interlude. A month later, the school forum suddenly exploded. A set of photos of Benjamin in formal clothes appearing in his family's company flooded the forum. The caption said that Benjamin had mended his ways and started to manage the company. With outstanding abilities, he had won a lot of praise in the company. The comments section was flooded, full of confession-like comments such as "Benjamin is so handsome. I love him so much." Scrolling through, one comment caught my attention. It said that the reason why Benjamin was rebellious and became a hooligan was that his father had forced him to learn things he didn't like since he was a child. And all the things he liked were nipped in the bud. When he was extremely naughty, his father even wanted to strangle him once, saying that he didn't have the son. Looking at this comment, my heart ached for a moment. But it was just for a moment. I exited the forum, turned off my phone, and pushed Benjamin out of my mind. I concentrated on preparing for the recent exam. Ami came in and leaned over in disbelief. "Fiona, have you seen the forum? Benjamin has actually mended his ways. It's so incredible." I answered absent-mindedly. "I've also heard recently that the rapist was caught. And it was Benjamin's younger brother who made great contributions. His younger brother squatted on Tianyang Road every day. In the middle of the night 2 days ago, he found the wreck host and immediately called the police. Tianyang Road is exactly the road you take to go home. Fortunately, you're okay." My hand holding the pen paused, and the scene when Benjamin first went to my home popped into my mind and timely. So what he said was true. Anami was still chattering, but I didn't hear a word. I was a little absent-minded during the class in the afternoon. Finally, the class was over. I was about to go back to the dormitory when I suddenly heard a commotion. Looking up, I saw Benjamin in a black suit walking in surrounded by a group of girls. At that time, he had no longer the ruffian air he had before, and his eyebrows and eyes showed calmness and seriousness. Much like a successful person, he walked towards me. At this moment, I wanted to run away. Benjamin was a popular figure now. If I got involved with him, I didn't know how many girls would be jealous of me. But Benjamin obviously didn't give me a chance to escape. He took 2 steps and came in front of me, blocking my way. Fiona. Tomorrow is the weekend. My mother invites you and your mother to have dinner and have a little get-together. His tone of speaking had also changed. As soon as he said this, there was an uproar around. Some people quietly guessed what relationship I had with him. Benjamin glanced at everyone and explained. My mother and Fiona's mother are best friends. The two families will get together occasionally. So, he came to me completely because of his mother and my mother, without any self-interest. This was the explanation Benjamin gave to others. But I knew it was not the case. I bought some gifts for your mother today. It happens to be on my way later. I'll take you home. After thinking for a while, I still refused. I still need to go back to the dormitory to pack my things. So I'll pass. It's okay. I'll wait for you. When he spoke, he was gentle yet forceful, leaving no room for refusal at all. 12 When I got into Benjamin's car, I still felt a bit unreal. It was not until the car started and the wind blew on my face that I came to my senses. Fiona. I turned to look at him. It happened to be a red light. After he stopped, he also turned to look at me, with a serious look on his face. Fiona. Now I'm not that idle young hooligan who used to fight all the time. Are you willing to give me a chance? The deep affection in his eyes remained undiminished. In a trance, I was back to that day again. And those broken eyes gradually overlapped with the present him. My throat choked up all of a sudden, and I didn't know what to say. I think I should reject him. But when I think that he took over the family business for me and became what he didn't like, I can't bring myself to say it. It's okay. You don't need to rush to answer me. The light turned green, and he stepped on the accelerator. I turned to look out of the window, my mind in chaos. After he sent me home, Benjamin left. Before I could react, my mother started sighing. Oh, Xiao Bi is such a nice child. It's a pity that you two are not fated to be together. Back then, your Aunt Chen and I tried so hard to match you two up. But there was no spark between you two. What a pity. What a pity. Remembering the past events, I pulled my mother to sit down and asked tentatively, Mom, do you think Benjamin and I are suitable? My mother's face turned serious. Look at Xiao Bi. He is handsome and successful. Although he was a bit wild before, he is fine now. As for you, you have nothing. No wonder there was no chemistry between you two. My real mother. Truly my real mother. I heard that Benjamin has a bad relationship with his father. Is it true? At this, my mother sighed. You don't know. Your Aunt Chen is not Xiao Bi's biological mother, but his stepmother. Xiao Bi's father loved his biological mother very much, but she died of massive hemorrhage when giving birth to him. Extreme love turns into hatred. So Xiao Bi's father transferred some of his resentment onto Xiao Bi. Since he was a child, he forced Xiao Bi to learn what his biological mother knew, as if he wanted to find a trace of his biological mother in Xiao Bi. For example, his biological mother could play the violin. So Xiao Bi's father forced him to learn the violin. The things his biological mother didn't eat for religious reasons, Xiao Bi's father didn't allow him to eat either. Think about it. How could a small child not go crazy after being tortured like this for a long time? I was extremely shocked. But looking at Aunt Chen and Benjamin, you can't tell at all that she is his stepmother. My mother nodded and explained. Fortunately, Xiao Bi's father later married your Aunt Chen, and Xiao Bi was rescued. Although your Aunt Chen is his stepmother, she is very kind to Xiao Bi and loves him, as if he were her own son, which is why Xiao Bi didn't go astray. You don't even know. The first time they came to our house before, you said Xiao Bi blocked your way. Somehow it reached his father's ears, and Xiao Bi was beaten severely. His father also said that he was nothing like his biological mother. Like a wild. Okay. Why does a little girl like you inquire so much? Go and have a rest. My mother pushed me back to my room. Even though she stopped, I could guess what the following words were. All of a sudden, a dense feeling of heartache filled my chest. And I suddenly regretted it. I regretted that when Benjamin sent me a message before, I didn't comfort him. At that time, he must have been very sad and in great need of comfort. Maybe when he was beaten, he straight bent his back, clenched his teeth, and didn't let out a single sound. Stubborn and tough. Then, he took a photo and sent it to me, pitifully begging me for comfort. But I turned a blind eye. 13 in the evening. Benjamin suddenly sent me a WeChat message. It was a photo. I clicked on it. And it was the moon. He said, "The moon is very beautiful today. Do you want to go out and have a look?" When I saw these words, my heart skipped a beat. I hurriedly went to open the curtain, but there was no sign of Benjamin on the roadside. So it was just my imagination. He was not downstairs at my house. I looked up at the moon and replied to him, "It's very beautiful." The next second, a voice call came in. I hesitated for a moment, and then pressed the answer button. Benjamin's deep voice rang out, "Fiona." It was a bit noisy on his side. So noisy that I could hardly hear his voice clearly. Those noisy sounds gradually disappeared. And his clear voice rang out again, "Fiona, can you hear me now?" I answered in a low voice, "I've always wanted to call you before. But I didn't dare." Hearing this sentence, my heart suddenly felt very sour. What have I done to deserve Benjamin and doing this for me? "Benjamin, does your back still hurt? It's been a month. It has long been healed." He said it very lightly. But I had been thinking about what my mother said just now. I sniffed and tried to make my voice calmer. "I'm sorry. At that time, I didn't comfort you." Benjamin was stunned for a moment and didn't speak for a long time. All I could hear was his shallow breathing. After a while, his voice came out from the receiver, sounding relaxed. "It's okay. I forgive you. After all, I blocked you at that time. I deserved it." I could tell that he was pretending to be relaxed. And his voice was a bit tense. I changed the topic. "Let's look at the moon." The moonlight is very beautiful tonight." Just like that. Neither of us spoke anymore. Quietly looking at the same moon. Suddenly, a drunken voice came from the receiver. "Oh. How did you, young Master Zhu, run out? It's not okay to avoid drinking." Benjamin said, "Fiona, I have an entertainment event to attend. I'll hang up first." Even before I could say one more word, the phone was hung up. I looked at my mobile phone, a little stunned. I thought he had gone home after taking me home. But I didn't expect that he still had an engagement. For a while, my heart was so sour that I almost wanted to cry. "Benjamin. Oh Benjamin. What have I done to deserve this?" That night, I wasn't sleepy at all and was seriously thinking about my relationship with Benjamin. At 3 o'clock in the middle of the night, I suddenly received a message from him. "Benjamin, are you asleep?" Me, "Not yet." Immediately after that, a voice call came in. "Do you want to watch the moon together?" Benjamin's voice was tinged with a bit of drunkenness. Presumably, he had finished his engagement. Sure. I got out of bed and opened the curtain. But my hand paused all of a sudden. It was still that familiar street lamp. Benjamin was standing there, with one hand holding the mobile phone to his ear, looking up at me. I saw his lips move. And the next second, his voice came from the receiver. "Can you come down? If you don't think it's okay, it doesn't matter either." At this moment, my heart skipped a beat uncontrollably. I knew this was a throb. I put on my coat and went downstairs to Benjamin. He might have drunk too much. His face was a little flushed. His hair was a bit messy. And 2 buttons on his shirt were undone. He looked wild and alluring. He smiled at me. And his voice held a hint of surprise. "I thought you would refuse." Benjamin pulled me to sit on the curb, looked up at the moon, and sighed again. The moonlight is so beautiful tonight. Actually, I knew what this sentence meant. As a 5G girl who surfs the internet a lot, I never miss any internet memes. Benjamin, you don't like being like this now, right? Yes. But I have to be responsible for you. He turned to look at me, and his eyes seemed to hide a vast starry sky, shining brightly. Fiona. I know. My previous self not only scared you but also made you distrust me. You thought that being with someone like me had no future. So you cut the Gordian knot cleanly. You may not believe it when I say this, but you are my first love. I really like you very much. Love is something that can't be explained. But I'm willing to change for you. So, can you give me a chance? If you still think it's not suitable this time, then I will never pester you again. My nose tingled, and I almost cried. Benjamin, there is a gap between us. Look, as long as you are willing, you can stand at the peak. But I'm different. Besides our personalities, there are also our family backgrounds. My mother and your mother have a very good relationship. But this can't eliminate the gap between us. Marriage is a lifetime matter. Benjamin raised his hand to hold my face, and his forehead leaned over. The smell of alcohol on him suddenly hit me. It doesn't matter. I want to grow up one step ahead of you to shelter you from the wind and rain. But if you want to move forward side by side with me, I'm also willing to lower my head for you and be your right-hand man. Fiona, don't have so many concerns. Let's give it a try. Okay? All problems have solutions. There are no unsolvable problems. Maybe the moonlight was too beautiful tonight. Or maybe the Benjamin in front of me was too sincere. I nodded. He immediately hugged me tightly, as if he couldn't wait to embed me in his arms. We sat for a long time and talked a lot. Only then did I realize that I had never really known Benjamin well. It turned out that the real him was so excellent. Finally, I couldn't hold on any longer and fell asleep while leaning on him. The next day when I woke up at my home, recalling everything that happened yesterday. It still seemed a bit unreal. My mother came to knock on the door. Get up and clean up quickly. Don't forget the dinner with Xiao Bi and the others later. Okay. 15. The dinner this time was at a high-end hotel. When we arrived, Benjamin had already arrived. He was still in a formal suit today, looking serious and proper. I thought, wasn't this a bit too proper? It was just a dinner. It would be better to be more casual. Come quickly. Sit here. As soon as Aunt Chen saw my mother, they still had endless things to talk about. I sat down beside them. And the next second, Benjamin sat beside me. We looked at each other and smiled without saying a word. Only, under the table, he quietly hooked my hand. Benjamin leaned over a little and teased, "Why are you blushing? It's just holding hands. It seems like we are having an affair." All of a sudden, he seemed to have returned to that rascal-like self who talked nonsense all the time. I glared at him, and he immediately sat up properly and showed me a brilliant smile. When the meal was almost over, Benjamin got up to pay the bill. After a while, Aunt Chen took my mother to the bathroom. In the large private room, I was the only one left. I bowed my head to play with my mobile phone and waited for them to come back. There was a sound of the door opening behind me. I thought it was Benjamin who had come back. When I turned around, I saw a delicate and beautiful little girl walking towards me. "Sister, a brother asked me to take you there." The little girl's voice was milky, and she held my hand. My heart melted all of a sudden. Which brother? She didn't say anything but just pulled me out. Only when I went out did I find that except for the private room, the entire hotel lobby was dark, which was extremely mysterious. A little girl pulled me to the center of the lobby, and then ran away with a smile. I looked at the pitch-black surroundings and tentatively called out, "Benjamin?" As soon as my voice fell, soft lights suddenly lit up in the lobby, and there were footsteps behind me. I turned around and saw Benjamin holding a bouquet of roses, walking slowly towards me. Only then did I notice that there were a lot of flowers, balloons and candles arranged around. What is he? An idea sprang up in my mind. Is Benjamin going to propose to me? Isn't this too soon? He came up to me, as if seeing through my inner thoughts, and said with a smile, I was thinking of proposing, but I'm afraid you'll think it's too soon. So I'll confess my love first. Suddenly, he knelt down on one knee and raised his hand to hand me a rose, full of a sense of ceremony. Fiona, I'm not good at saying overly emotional words, but I will prove with practical actions all your concerns. Are you willing to give me a chance and be my girlfriend? Suddenly, a burst of applause broke out around, which startled me. It turned out that there were many onlookers in the places out of my sight. Say yes. Say yes. I took the flower. My eyes felt hot and my throat was a little choked, so I could only nod vigorously. Actually, last night, I had already tacitly considered myself Benjamin's girlfriend. Kiss. Kiss. Benjamin stood up and gave a sharp-eyed glare, and those who were making a fuss immediately quieted down. He just held my hand tightly. Fiona, I won't let you regret it. The lobby lights were fully lit, and everyone cheered joyfully. Only then did I see that my mother and Aunt Chen were also among them. Suddenly, Benjamin's little brother came over with a look of surprise. Well, hello, sister-in-law. Back then, when my big brother and I went to have a midnight snack, I was wondering why he fought with others because of just a few words. Later, I learned that my big brother had been dumped. Sister-in-law, you're so awesome. Go away. Benjamin kicked his little brother away, and the tips of his ears were a little red. I summoned up my courage, hugged his waist, and stood on tiptoe to kiss him on the face. In the future, we won't break up again. Wow. Wow. The people around immediately started making a fuss again. I saw that Benjamin's face was all red, and I couldn't help being surprised. He was actually shy. He pinched my face. You said it. Immediately. He shouted loudly. Mom, quickly pick a good day. When we graduate, we'll get the marriage license, and next year we'll give you a big fat grandson. Okay. Okay. You're so impatient. I was so shy that I hid in Benjamin's arms, and my nose was filled with his scent. I think he has already taken 99 steps for me. If I don't take the last step, it won't be reasonable.